Hey, welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. I'm Johnny Venerable, joined by Brack, live in Indianapolis, post the joint practice festivities with the Arizona Cardinals as they take on the Indianapolis Colts en route for preseason game 2 on Saturday. Now, it was a wet one today. For those of us who were not in the Midwest Bowl, it felt like it rained just about everywhere. You guys made the wise decision, back to the hotel, get dried off, ready to go for the show today. How are you, my friend?
We're good. We sought shelter. We found it. We toweled off. We got less waterlogged, and we're ready for a big show. You know, to break down practice two of two here in Indy, and we got another glimpse of what this Cardinals team looks like against team that's not themselves. So I think that the results probably, especially considering the conditions, probably not what they were yesterday, where we saw big play after big play from Kyler Murray in the offense. I mean, absolutely get into it, but I think it was a little bit more of a sobering practice today for the Redbirds.
Yeah, outside of I'm just going to call him the unguardable Marvin Harrison Jr. because I haven't seen a defensive back, whether it be in highlights or training camp or in a preseason game, in 3 snaps be able to cover Marv. Outside of that, the Cardinals skill players continuing to have their way. Sounds like the Cardinals probably took the L today as compared to yesterday, specifically line of scrimmage play, which we're going to dive into. Their pass rush, once again, is a no-show. It's becoming a trend. But let's start. I do want to start with Marvin Harrison Jr. because the highlights were plenty on the Twitter streets, even with the rain coming down. I mean, growing up in the Midwest, playing big-time football at Ohio State, looked like Marv, even against the Colts 1s and 2s, very much in his element today.
Yeah, I mean, grew up in Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia, and then also played at Ohio State. No stranger to the elements is Marvin Harrison Jr. So are we going to watch the highlights right now, Damon? We got those locked and loaded. Is that what you want to do here, Johnny?
Let's do it. If the highlights are ready, why make the people wait? Let's check them out.
All right. This is what we walked into. It was actually not clear skies, but it was dry. And then as soon as you walk up to the practice field, it's just torrential downpour. You see Paris Johnson Jr. here going against, I think, is that Pay of Indianapolis right there? I believe
so, yeah.
Number 94. And then we start to get into it. There's Marvin Harrison Jr., the back of the end zone.
Look at that one.
Greg Dortch at the line of scrimmage left his man in the dust. You're going to see a elite catch from Greg Dortch. Look at Dortch just shaking his head like nobody can guard me. There's a little Zay Jones on the sideline here. How about Greg Dortch again laying out? This was a beautiful catch. Unreal. Michael Wilson doing some work on his man, draped on him, and then he gets the separation in the corner of the end zone for the tutty. And then here we're going to see some Marvin Harrison Jr. go to work. Poor Jalen Jones, the second-year corner out of Texas A&M.
Pour one out for him.
Diced up. Probably had a little bit more success when they went 11-11 in a 2-minute drill, and you can definitely chalk up a dub to the Colts defense in that situation. But as far as the one-on-one, and Arizona Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon, he said, "I'm going to put on my defensive hat." When he's talking about yesterday's clip that went viral across the board on social media, we had it. Tyler Drake had it. Damon had a great shot of it. I think Ted Nguyen also had it, and everybody was talking about it. And Kenny Moore was put on ice skates. JG said that's an offensive drill. Like, the offensive player has the upper hand there, but still, to watch these route runners, these playmakers, these technicians go to work and operate and show off their skill set, it's still a fun thing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is the strength of the Cardinal team, like we talked about yesterday. So they should be ahead of schedule. And a lot of people believe the weakest part of the Colts outside of, their, the 8-figure nickel corner that they have that was molded by JG. They don't have great corners. So the Cardinals should be winning that matchup. So, I'm optimistic about that unit. Are they going to be able to shine when it matters most? Are the Cardinals going to be able to hold up at the line of scrimmage? That's another conversation entirely. But I think you have to be, the Colts are going to be having nightmares, it seems like, about Greg Dortch each of the next, fever dreams each of the next couple of days en route to this game on Saturday. And I know Dortch isn't playing, but outside of Marvin, he's looked the most impressive out within clips and highlights and just, you and Damon and everybody else at training camp and the joint practices. So very optimistic. Knock on wood too. We're going to get into some of the cons that you saw on display today, but no injuries to report. I mean, it's always a good thing. You can get through a couple of these joint practices and they're high tempo days, knock on wood, like, okay, nobody's going down, right? We've seen it happen with other teams around the league. Good hell, what's going on with the Minnesota Vikings. So that's promising, because if you're the Arizona Cardinals, like I think fully, like, the Indianapolis Colts are right where I think this podcast believes this team should be, where the Colts were last year, like this team that's going to vie for a playoff spot, 9 or 10 wins. And I think, like, you should be in the same class as Indy. I think you've got an upgrade at quarterback, but I think a lot of people would say, well, they've got an upgrade at, defensive line, right? So it's a give and take a little bit with Indianapolis. So, I mean, you're not going head to head with the Niners in their joint practice, that the who's who of Pro Bowlers up and down the roster. I think this is a very good litmus test. And if the Cardinals and the Colts played 10 times based on these results, they'd probably split, at least right now, like 50-50 potentially. And that a lot of that's going to be skewed with QB play. But that should tell Cardinal fans, like, I just got done watching a little bit of the preseason game, Eagles and Patriots. The Patriots look like the team right now that everybody assumed the Cardinals were going to be last year, that were going to be in the NFL, that were going to go winless. Like, that's where the Cardinals have come from. And now you watch them and they're holding their own and besting on any given day, not today, but against Indianapolis. So that's promising. So before we jump into some of these negatives,
by the way, I saw Kenny Pickett was averaging 0.7 yards per completion. I mean, or as far as air yards on his completions.
That's Colt McCoy-esque.
Was he shovel passing it? He just get the snap and then just shovel pass it every single time?
One of the most egregious first round picks of the last decade. Like, he and Trey Lance, like, what are we doing? But I'm optimistic by the results. Now, let's talk about, Bo, what you saw and where this team struggled today.
Yeah, well, let's talk to give full context over the last 2 days. So if you didn't tune us in yesterday, you weren't part of the 1,500 strong that we're watching on the multicast on YouTube and Twitter, then I'll catch you up to speed. The Arizona Cardinals came out of the gate strong yesterday. Kyler Murray was just spreading the ball around and getting big chunk plays with his big playmakers. I think up front in pass pro, you wanted to see a little bit better performance, but Kyler in the offense was still able to find plays downfield and kind of pick apart a Colts secondary. And then, the Colts offensively and defensively made a strong charge at the end. Today, I felt like it was the Colts. You can pretty much say that they ran the show the entire practice today. There were a couple moments that stuck out to me. Like the first team offense came out in red zone today. Mm-hmm. Kyler Murray was able to hit Marvin Harrison underneath, and then he went in for the touchdown. That was one of the few highlights I think that we saw. That was nice. We did have a Kyler Murray interception in the red zone, trying to make a play there before. And this was more of an abbreviated practice for the Cardinals, and that's how it was set up. The weather didn't have anything to do with it. And then you got into a 2-minute drill situation where it was 11 on 11. And, Anthony Richardson and the Colts offense were aided heavily by a very questionable PI call. What set them up in a very favorable situation, first and goal, and Anthony Richardson was able to run it in himself for the score. And that was it for the first team Colts offense. Their day was done. And then it was the Colts first string defense against the Cardinals first string offense. And they just couldn't get anything going. They were going backwards. There was a false start penalty. I know that they did get a PI, a defensive PI that was called on a player in coverage against Marvin Harrison Jr., but that was about it. They really just couldn't move the football and kind of find any kind of, I guess, direction that was going forward for this offense. So it was a tough day, especially a tough finish. I know that they did get a stop at the end against the Colts' second string offense, where Darren Hall was able to break it up on what was going to be a 4th and goal situation, which, is a good one. You walk off the field on a make, or, walk off the court on a make when you're just shooting hoops.
And he let him hear it too.
He did. A former Colt and Darren Hall, and we talked to him afterwards, and he was definitely letting his former teammates know. But I wouldn't say it was uneven. I think it was favored in the direction of the Colts, but you didn't see that the Arizona Cardinals were like holding their head down. I know Jonathan Gannon was fired up and passionate in the huddle to break things up and had a message to his team. But at the same time, I saw Kyler, talking with Drew Petzing, and it seemed like they were in a good spot, despite not having any success really kind of moving the ball, getting into a rhythm offensively. And, Greg Dortch, who we talked to in the post-practice scrum, and he seemed that, confidence continues to be at a very high level for this team.
I mean, the Colts are not some pushover team. They've got physical players. I think they've got players that lend itself well to giving the Cardinals a tough day. I mean, you mentioned it, the pass rush with Latu and Kwity Paye and DeForest Buckner. Cardinals are all too familiar with the ex-Niner. And then on the offensive side, like Ryan Kelly and company on an offensive line that prides itself on running the football. Cardinals last year had a really tough time, a la Justin Fields with mobile QB play. A lot of that's a byproduct, gentlemen, of the lack of presence on the edge. And so, I mean, there are going to be days like this. But again, it's important to know, it's camp. These kind of things happen. And for the Arizona Cardinals, too, like, they are not a finished product. And I think that's an important thing to emphasize. This is not a Super Bowl or bust year. We just want to see progress with the arrow pointing up, that they put themselves in a position to earn a playoff spot come December and January.
Yeah.
There are going to be games early in the season where you're like, what was that today? Or, man, I'm really disappointed by the lack of execution. But I think anybody expecting this team to start, demolishing a very good slate of opponents for the first 8 games of the year, I mean, that's just not realistic. And so I think, first of all, I think it's a great decision by Jonathan Gannon and, Monty Ossenford to set up these joint practices. I think it shows the Cardinals exactly where they're at, where they need to be. And who knows, Bo and Damon, this could put a sense of urgency on the team that has not been prevalent on making additional moves here before the start of the regular season. We're going to talk about Carl Lawson no longer being an option. Of course, Matthew Judon was traded for by Atlanta yesterday. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals have an offense that's a playoff caliber unit. And defensively, they've got a lot of young pieces that I think we're excited about, right? The Darius Robinsons and the Xavier Thomas and a Roy Lopez and a Starling. They got a lot of good stuff going defensively. Mm-hmm. But they are missing what I believe are premier line of scrimmage players that inevitably could hold them back this year. And I think in a practice like this, when the elements are in full effect and, you're trying to be physical and it's not finesse football out there, and I'm not calling Nick Rollis's unit a finesse unit, but could I envision a scenario in which the Colts line up and push around Dennis Gardeck and Zaven Collins? Absolutely, I could. And getting to the second level on the Cardinals, I saw that last year with lesser teams. I saw Seattle do that. So to me, the Cardinals have limitations on the roster, and I'm sure the Colts, after losing yesterday for the most part and getting outplayed by the Cardinals, I'm sure they were motivated to come out and put on a good performance, albeit in the rain, for their fans.
Yeah, and I see in the chat here, who was it? We had, I think it was Jack. Yeah, Jack Grant mentioning that the Colts beat writers continuously were tweeting about Cardinals tackles getting destroyed by the Colts edge. And, they've got talent up front. Interior, they've got DeForest Buckner. And then on the edge, they've got Latu, a first-round pick, in Kwity Paye, who came out of Michigan with a lot of hype. And I think that he's maturing and developing as a pass rusher in the NFL. It's not an excuse that for the second day in a row that was a problem. But when we start to kind of examine this and try to forecast what, could slow things down or that could handicap this offense, especially because what we put on display is you see big plays being made from Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. You're going to see Trey McBride. And of course, Kyler Murray himself. What can kind of hinder them from being, the sky truly being the limit for this offense? Can they be a top 10, top 5 unit? It's the pass pro. And, are they going to be able to get up to speed? I think that they have the personnel that can get there. It just wasn't there the last 2 days between, you got Paris switching over left tackle. You got Jonah Williams, the new addition to it. Those are your 2 starting tackles. They've proven that they can play the tackle position at this level. It's just, it seems like that was a rough couple practices for that group.
Yeah, and again, like I'm not diminishing Jack, like this team's maybe inability to pass protect today, but again, like consider the elements. And if your pushback is, well, the Cardinals couldn't get any pressure. I mean, do you look at the Cardinals pass rush unit? I look to last year as a complete offense. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, the Cardinals were like in the middle of the pack with in terms of like sacks allowed, right? And you think about that. That was with Joshua Dobbs at quarterback for much of the year. That was with a turnstile at left guard. And then, DJ Humphries was hit or miss last year. I don't have concerns over the offensive line more or less because they have a reputation, they have a rapport, and they've got a resume. And this was probably the best coach unit on the team last year. So like, I don't expect it to be fully baked here on August 15th.
For sure.
And again, like, Paris Johnson Jr., is there going to be a transition from right to left tackle? Absolutely. But he was an exceptional right tackle at the end of last year. He was one of the best up-and-coming players as a rookie in the NFL the last 6 weeks of the regular season. Yelda Froholm and Will Hernandez are as solid as they come. And like Jonah Williams, I think, is going to be on par, if not more athletic than what we got out of DJ Humphries. And I think we all agree Evan Brown is, I mean, name me who their left guard was last year. It was turnstile. It was a liability. So like, I don't think it's a perfect unit. It's not a finished product, but it's, I mean, to compare, and I'm not saying you did, but to compare like the pass rush to their inability maybe to pass protect these last 2 days, I think is just night and day. They have the players that they need up front, pending injury. They do not have, double-digit sack edge rushers on the roster. I'm not even sure they have guys that can get to 8 sacks this year. So, and I think these practices are so important, as I mentioned earlier, and you've emphasized this at practice, Bo and Damon. This gives the Cardinals a chance to say, like, yeah, we're trying to go from here to here. Yeah. And the Colts, they're much better than us at that. They jump off the tape. They jump off the field with the ability to rush the passer. We don't have anybody that can do that. So, again, maybe it instills a sense of urgency. And on the flip side, maybe the Colts are like, we don't have nearly as many weapons as the Cardinals. We have to win a certain way.
Right. They've got Michael Pittman. And then you're searching for other weapons outside of your running back and then your quarterback. Mm-hmm. They're sitting the same thing the way we're talking about the pass rush.
Yeah.
They're talking about their defensive secondary. Now, I do want to defer to Damon here. He did get a good glimpse of the defense. It might have been just because he was hiding and seeking shelter during practice while I stood out there and braved the elements.
Damon.
My Manalytics were off the charts today because I was out there just wearing raindrops.
I was ready to praise Bo and say, that was a winning mentality out of him. But after he came after me for just no reason at all, I don't know that I'm willing to do that anymore.
But can you give us some insight on the defense and what you saw maybe from what Johnny's looking for as far as the pass rush?
Yeah. Well, from a pass rush standpoint, I honestly didn't really see all that much. Again today. One thing I did note was that Alec Pierce had a pretty good day today for the Colts. So they had a second weapon other than Michael Pittman Jr.
He's a solid player.
Yeah, Michael Pittman didn't do as much today as he did yesterday. Everything that they threw him yesterday, he caught pretty much. Today, I tweeted it out that a couple pass breakups on targets to him from Garrett Williams and Sean Murphy Bunting that I saw for sure. But Alec Pierce made some pretty big catches, scored a few touchdowns, got that DPI call against Sean Murphy Bunting in the 2-minute drill. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Colts offense probably won the day, but there wasn't a whole lot happening on the defensive side of the field from what I could see.
I mean, Anthony Richardson is not Josh Allen, but like if that was his coming out, like that's the kind of quarterback the Cardinals are going to face tenfold week 1. So like, I feel like, if they're surrendering, lengthy plays to a guy who missed his entire rookie season last year, that's a concern for me because I mean, Buffalo, unlike Arizona, like they can't get through this training camp healthy. They had to place their like leader on their defense, their stud Pro Bowl linebacker on. Sounds like he's going to go on IR, tore his biceps, not playing week 1 against the Cardinals. They lose Chase Claypool. They have no receivers, right? The defense is, I think a lot of us assume, has regressed. Like the Buffalo Bills week 1 is a very winnable game for the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals have the weaponry offensively to put points up, albeit against the Sean McDermott defense. can the Cardinals contain Josh Allen for 4 quarters? Can they get him off the field? Because I think the improvements up front for the Cardinals starts and ends with their defensive tackle, and I think that's going to help them stop the run. But if Josh Allen wants to take off on 3rd and 12, who's going to stop him off the edge? If the Cardinals desperately need somebody to push the pocket, make him uncomfortable on obvious passing downs, like, I don't know if the Cardinals have that within their repertoire, and they may not have it all year, and they could still win games. But I look at what's happening with the Buffalo Bills, not to, pivot here, but the Cardinals, there's a prime opportunity here. Like, we've seen the deterioration of the Minnesota Vikings over the past 24 hours. That's a very winnable game now, if it wasn't already, with Sam Darnold looking awful at Vikings camp. The Patriots look terrible. I mean, the Cardinals are in a position, say what you want about their pass rush, everything else is on the right track, in my opinion. And it's been confirmed. The most important part of your team has been confirmed this week, your passing game with your quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that they did kind of go heavy, more so if you're looking at the splits on pass to rush plays, that they wanted to kind of get this rapport between Kyler and his playmakers, because K1's not going to be playing in the preseason up to speed.
Yeah.
And they didn't run the football, but it's still going to be the emphasis of this offense throughout games and during the regular season in feeding James Conner. And that should help out. Like I said, this offensive line, as we say, they struggle in pass pro. They are built to run the football. And then with the addition of Tip Ryman and the improvement that Trey McBride continues to put in the work that he puts in as far as a blocking tight end, I think that's going to show up, and he'll have an even better year there. So like those help is there. Like there is a path to fixing this between now and the start of the season. Also, I mean, Damon pointed this out to me. I mean, the Panthers are on their schedule, and they apparently look like the undefeated Patriots from, in the 2000s against the Jets, who are also on the Cardinals schedule. So the Jets, that everybody's prediction darling this season, shocked to not this podcast, look like garbage against Bryce Young in joint practice.
Apparently Bryce Young was cooking, and Terrace Marshall had a big day. That's what everyone was saying. Terrace Marshall went off against the Jets defense today.
Terrace Marshall, fellow draft bust with Rondale Moore that was taken like 15 picks later. That's shocking. The only LSU wide receiver who has not been good in the NFL. Interesting. I mean, we joke about this. We're like, after Dan Orlovsky's diary of an article on ESPN.com with his quarterback rankings, the offseason of rankings has been put to bed, and now like real tangible football is happening.
Yeah.
And like people are starting to take notice nationally. Like the Cardinals, if Kyler Murray plays this way this year that he's looked in camp, are going to win games that people did not expect them to. You can talk about another team's receiving core like the Vikings or their defensive line or their head coach. The Cardinals are going to have, in my opinion, top 10 quarterback play in the NFL this year and top 5 QB play in the NFC. And that is going to put them firmly in a position to make the postseason. Is the rest of the roster up for that challenge? And I think we don't have the answer to that yet. We've got 3.5 more weeks of the preseason. 3 weeks from tonight, the NFL regular season kicks off, which is crazy. So we're closing in on that. But I think, again, as much as you guys, everybody here, we got over 800 people. Everybody smash that like button. I will come on this podcast and bitch and complain about this pass rush because it's not good enough. But with that being said, like you be lying to yourself if you didn't look around the rest of this team and be like, they are ahead of schedule. Like I posted that Marv video, Damon, that you had yesterday. That was great, where he's cooking Kenny Moore. And it was tongue in cheek, but it's all in all sincerity. The Cardinals have this kind of talent on display in a passing league, in a scoring league, and you have people in this, not this media market, but then in this NFL landscape of the media talking about Sam Darnold at 27 years old. Like he's going to be some answer for Minnesota. That's a joke to me. That just shows you how many people are not paying attention to this team. So it's going to kill me if we watch this team and they're viable and there's this one singular unit that just so greatly holds them back. Like, look what the Colts did. They have Kwity Paye, they have DeForest Buckner, and they're like, we need Latu, right? And they took Latu, and they're doubling down and they're doubling down. The Cardinals are not doing that, and I hope it's not a mistake, right? And they have time to remedy it to some degree, but 3.5 weeks to go. Let's find some help.
To be fair, Chris Ballard has been in this position far longer, for sure, for building his roster. And I've always liked what the Colts have done roster-wise, as far as they built this thing. And for a long time, they felt it was like a quarterback away. They kept on just kicking the tires on washed quarterbacks to see if they had anything left. You know, Phillip Rivers, and I think he took them to the playoffs, and then Matt Ryan, which was a complete disaster. And then they finally pivoted and realized, hey, we got a draft guy, and they take Anthony Richardson, and I think that they like what they've seen from him, but it's all kind of sample size. What did he get, like 4 games last year? So like it was this roster was in shambles when Monty Ossenfort got his hands on it, and he's done a really good job in really infusing this roster with talent, and you're seeing it. It's just they haven't been able to address a premium position, because if you've got one, you don't let them out the door as far as pass rushers, and it remains one of those things that he's going to have to continue to address, hopefully before this upcoming offseason. The new regime saying, I know you guys aren't there. That's false. We are here. We were at practice out there in the rain.
Those wet jeans.
My wet jeans
say otherwise.
They weigh about 30 pounds from the rain that I took on with I just raw dogged the rain out there. There was no protection at all. And we have the Colts camp is saying they cooked us through camp so far. I disagree with that. I thought yesterday they did not. I thought that the Cardinals, 75% of the practice, you can say that the Cardinals won that offensively and defensively. Colts had their moments, and then today it was a Colts practice. So,
and what I take from it, and I mentioned it to you in the car on the way back, is I don't want this team playing in bad weather games.
Yep.
Like, that's what I kind of took out of this. Like, I'm glad we play in a dome, and a lot of our games are on the West Coast, so it's not going to be in terrible weather. Because they just didn't look as good in the rain today. But
you know what, though, Damon? They won at Pittsburgh last year, but normally I would agree with you. But they can do it if they need to. But I'm with you. Like, you would prefer not to do this.
Right. And they're in that game, what did they do? They established the run. They did not shy away from the run, even though it was kind of slow to start. I mean, James Conner was under 2 yards per carry going into the locker room before he broke out in the second half. And they were just relentless as far as establishing the run. And, that's not something you're doing in a joint practice. There's right. Like no flow to it.
Point. That's fair.
Yeah. So
it's a great point.
But it didn't look good in the bad weather, but neither did we.
I have an update on Hassan Reddick. And we're going to talk about Matthew Judon and Carl Lawson here in the show. But first, I got to tell you guys, I have an update on our friends at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Wild Horse Pass, tons of locations. How about the one in Santan Mountain? Experience the best the Valley has to offer with our favorite sportsbook and casino. Go all in with 4,500 slots, live table games, or catch all the action at any of the sports books. Again, it's big or go home, and it's going to be big for us this fall. Cards and Sons watch parties on the reg. Stay tuned for more details. I know a lot of people came out for our draft party. It was sold out, capacity crowd at Gila River Resorts and Wild Horse Pass. We're doubling down on that this fall. And again, if you're thinking, well, I want to go before then, of course you do. Go and check out the Unbeatable Vibes, Primed A. Shula Steakhouse. They've got the rooftop bar and pool. It's a great place. If you're thinking, I want to do a long weekend with my loved one, with my spouse, but I don't want to leave the state. Why would you? Go to Gila River Resorts and Casinos, Wild Horse Pass. When there are many locations, and experience the best the Valley has to offer. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. You best be sure I'm going to be playing at that sports book this fall. And again, I love all the apps that you're able to do, especially with our friends at Bet365. But I also love going and getting a hard copy ticket of my bet and just sitting back and hopefully collecting that sweet, sweet cash at the end of a profitable NFL Sunday. Again, it makes you feel like you're on the Las Vegas Strip, but you're here in Phoenix. And again, I know I mentioned this a lot, but it's worth repeating.
Yeah.
How clean this casino is, how it makes you feel like I'm at a resort. I'm at like a spa resort. Oh, and there's elite gambling and there's an elite sports book. That's Gila River Resorts and Casinos. That's where you need to be right now into the fall.
Absolutely. Take that money, reinvest it in yourself and a brand new vehicle from our friends over at Sanderson Ford. I was just looking at their inventory. They got plenty of 2024 Ford Broncos. It's a beautiful car. Damon loves it. He's about the Big Ben Bronco, the 24 year. Also, you've got the Ford Bronco Sport. How about the Ford Edge if you're looking for something a little bit smaller, or the Ford Escape? They've got plenty of inventory that you need to check out for yourself. With the playoff payoff sale, it's perfect. 24 Ford Bronco Sport Big Ben. You can lease for $299 for 36 months, 10% cash due at signing. Of course, you've got so many options with our friends over at Sanderson Ford. Tomorrow, I'm excited when I get back into town from Indy. I'm going to go swap out my truck right now and test drive over the weekend. Ford F-150 XLT. Can't wait to do that. Get my family. We're going to pile in. We're going to do a road trip this weekend, probably drive up north and just see what's going on with this Ford F-150. Also, while you're there, if they're going to take care of you in the largest Ford dealership in America, 65 beautiful acres out there. They got their restaurant. They got the Starliner Diner. It's elite. If you're going to get a car from Sanderson Ford when you're having work done or you're just getting it maybe washed up, you can go take a load off and get a nice meal at the Starline Diner. But take advantage of this playoff payoff sale. You can purchase or lease any new Ford, get 4 tickets for you and your family, and see the D-backs push for the playoffs. It's 0% for 36 months OAC from Ford Credit. See dealer for detailers. Sanderson Ford, our vehicle partner here at PHNX.
Update on the pass rusher. Before I do, everybody drop a like on this video. You helped almost get us there yesterday. Let's make it a firm 500 likes on this video. Help spread this around the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. We got almost 600 watching on Twitter. Pop on over to YouTube. Drop us a like. Leave a comment. And we appreciate that very much. So the Arizona Cardinals did not trade for Matthew Judon. He went for a third to the Atlanta Falcons in a move that I think you and I and Damon were collectively in agreement. Like, would you like to have Matthew Judon on the Arizona Cardinals? Absolutely. But at 32 years old, with the money he's going to be owed and the compensation, most importantly, gentlemen, of a third-round pick, didn't make a lot of sense for Arizona. But they checked in on Matthew Judon, did Monty Ossenfort. That was confirmed by Albert Breer. This is what this show is prepared to tell you today on a Football Thursday. The Arizona Cardinals have checked in on the availability of Hassan Reddick with the New York Jets. I can't tell you anything other than that. Nothing definitive, nothing that a trade is imminent. The Jets are even making him available, but the Arizona Cardinals have inquired. And so that's where we're at right now. And what spurred this on was earlier today, we got confirmation via numerous insiders that Carl Lawson was not signing with the Cardinals. He was instead signing with the Dallas Cowboys. And you and I were texting early this morning, and it's like Yannick or Hassan or bust. And again, like, I'm not sitting here telling you to 1,000 people watching this live here that the Cardinals are going to trade for Hassan Reddick. But they've made it clear, like, hey, what's happening, Jets? We're interested in if you at any point are going to move off of this player. And again, that's not surprising to me. If they're checking in on a 32-year-old Judon, why wouldn't you check in on a 29-year-old Reddick who has played directly for JG 2 years ago? And the only reason, in my opinion, he's not a Cardinal right now is the fact that Howie Roseman was pulling the trigger on a deal. So I hope the Jets open up the idea of a trade possibility, but the Cardinals and Ossenfort are active and they're pursuing. Will they land somebody? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, and like Reddick isn't going to be the pass rush savior, right? I mean, he would certainly bring a guy that now has 4 consecutive double-digit sacks, including his final season here in the desert. And people point to his 17.5 sack season under Jonathan Gannon, and he's coming off an 11 sack season, 29 years old, and he certainly adds a guy who's a proven commodity potentially in that room, but. The next 2 games, the next couple of weeks, as the Cardinals, what they're doing, monitoring the situation and checking in is great. But the next couple of weeks, why a move doesn't necessarily need to be imminent is they still need people to emerge. Like, even if it's if Hassan, if they can find a trade that works for them to bring him back and reunite him here with the team that drafted him and his favorite defensive play caller in Jonathan Gannon, they still are going to need, supplemental production, and they need to identify that, whether it's XT, Xavier Thomas, or Zaven Collins making that jump in year 2 as a pass rusher, or Dennis Gardeck coming off a 6-sack season, or, who else is in that room? Adu Makeji, Lucetta, Tyreek Smith. Somebody needs to emerge regardless. It just has to happen. But, that's good to hear. I mean, that's just teams doing their due diligence, looking at productive players and trying to fill a need. And even if it's just making a phone call and saying, hey, what's the status of Hassan right now?
Right.
Joe Douglas.
And that's what I believe that this conversation sounded like. And again, like, the market for Judon was robust. I mean, can you imagine what it would be for Hassan Reddick? I mean, the Chicago Bears, even with what I think is one of the better defensive lines in the NFC, led by Montez Sweat, appear hell-bent on adding another veteran very aggressively. We're pursuing Judon. So, again, I think the Cardinals would have competition, serious competition, if he was made available. And if you're the New York Jets and you're about to trade this player before the start of the regular season, you're going to do absolutely everything in your power to get as much as you can. Like, they're not going to give this player away if they make him available, 4 consecutive double-digit sack seasons. So, again, I have no idea what will transpire. I don't know if the Cardinals are in a position to trade picks for a player, but they certainly, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. They were in on Lawson. They were in on Judon. Now they're in to some degree on Reddick if he becomes truly available. They know that it's a problem. I mean, the minute Ojulari went down and we were at training camp 2 weeks ago doing the red and white scrimmage, it was like, we're waving the red flag a little bit. Like, hey, this unit needs help. And I am optimistic with what we've seen from Xavier Thomas. And I think Zaven Collins is going to make strides this year. Those are great secondary options, but they need a veteran. Like, a lot of people were complaining about Carl Lawson hasn't been good in years, and he's older, and Yannick Ngakoue's old, and Reddick and Judon. That's exactly what this team needs. I think they have enough effort players. They need a middle to late inning reliever that can come in and pitch an inning when they need to. Like, you and I have been banging that drum. This is not going to be, outside of Reddick, this is not going to be a guy that you demand to play like 90+% of your snaps this year. They need a specialist to come in and help this team. So the problem is, though, Bo, is outside of a Reddick or a Yannick, who may not even be healthy, like, there's not even another name. I was combing the interweb today. I'm like, who could even be available? Who could this team acquire? Because, like, you look at Minnesota, right? The Cardinals did a deal with Minnesota last year. They traded Joshua Dobbs. Like, could they trade them Desmond Ridder? If Desmond Ridder is available and they need a backup for Sam Darnold, could you trade? Listen a second. Who called the Rondell Moore player for player trade?
Hey.
Could you trade Desmond Ridder to the Vikings for a secondary pass rusher? Then I'm looking at the guys they have. They don't have anybody they would be willing to trade. And then outside of that, there's nobody you'd want. So you got to get real creative if you're going to find somebody to come help you off the bench.
You better hope the Vikings weren't able to see what Desmond Ridder did today in the 2-minute drill at practice.
Burn that tape. Burn it.
The wishful guessing by Johnny Venerable, by the way. Yes, Desmond Ridder in the 2-minute drill came out with the twos, Damon, and what was his first play?
First play, airmails it about 10 yards over his receiver's head, straight into the lap of a safety interception.
I mean, that's not great. That's not great.
It wasn't great. But look, yeah, we've seen deals go down and teams get desperate for quarterbacks. And yeah, maybe give Kwesi a call and say, hey, Desmond, for who you got?
Hey, we have this ham sandwich. Do you have any pass rushers?
Well, I sent you a text message the other day, Bo. Was it yesterday? I'm like, the Vikings are selfish. They need to trade a pass rusher. They signed Van Winkle, they signed Grenard, and then they drafted Dallas Turner. Any of those 3 players would be the Cardinals' best pass rusher on their team.
Look, and here's one thing I do want to set. As far as the Carl Lawson, and Cam Cox reported this, that he had a bad workout, or they didn't like his workout when they brought him in for a tryout, a couple days ago. And you look at the move that the Cowboys are desperate. The Cowboys, Jerry Jones, he was just he's looking for anything. But, as far as their scouting, they go off name and past production. They traded for Jordan Phillips. And what do we know about Jordan Phillips? He's not
Lazy.
He's not a winning player.
No.
And I think that when they were like, hey, we need a pass rusher, and they just look at the free agent wire and they just and then they just go down the stat column, and they found the guy who had the most there. Where I think Monty Ossenfort, he understands that that's not going to be a play that's going to, if Carl Lawson's not better than the guys they already have in their room, it makes no sense to bring him in just because, hey, we can just hang our hat on his previous statistics. That's just what separates, and I think is going to continue to separate Monty Ossenfort from other GMs in this league. Carl Lawson, I just don't want Cardinals fans to look at that as like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I don't think anybody views that. The Cardinals had every opportunity, and had that been their only workout, and then they're like, we're good, we see enough from our internal players. Like, that's not what's happening here. The Cardinals are doing what was asked of them by this podcast and this fan base. Like, go turn over every stone, and if there's an option that's better than what you have, then you need to pursue that, and they're pursuing that. Yeah. But I like Carl Lawson, to me, like, the fact that he was signed by Dallas is a moot point. Like, he's not going to help them enough to.
They should sign Carl Winslow. He'll probably get about the same amount of production.
Family matters.
Yeah.
Is that family ties or family matters?
Family matters.
Nice. That's probably a little outdated for our audience, but that's good. I got it. But like, look what Dallas signed him for. They have Micah Parsons. They have DeMarcus Lawrence. Carl Lawson's going to come in and help them. Like, the Cardinals don't have anybody of that caliber. So it just, you can't rebuild this unit on the fly. If the Cardinals were serious about improving this unit, they would have needed to prioritize it in February. My only pushback is, like, there were no contingency plans in case an Ojulari or a Zaven Collins went down, specifically Ojulari. And so, like, you've made this point, and like, I'm coming to grips to it, even if the Reddick deal were to transpire. Like, they've made their bed with their pass rush. Like, if you're the Arizona Cardinals this year and your pass rush stinks on Sunday, if we're sitting there and I'm at Gila River and I throw a hoagie at the TV because I'm pissed that nobody can get edge pressure, I'm going to look at you both and I'm just going to be like, but what did we expect?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to pay Kyler Murray $50 million and he throws 5 picks in a game. It's like, well, that shouldn't be happening with the amount of money you're making. Same thing with some of these high-priced players on their team. James Conner fumbles 4 times in a game, but those are outlier performances. Those things don't happen. Their investment in their pass rush is minimal. So we should expect minimal results. Is that, am I being too critical?
I mean, beyond them scheming something up, I mean, it's tough to envision. It's tough to project, to predict, what it's going to look like when it's just a room full of unknowns outside of, Dennis Gardeck. I mean, I think that you still don't know what you're going to get from Zaven Collins, outside of the stuff that he does that doesn't show up in the box score. And, you can still be excited about Zaven and going into year 2. It still just remains an unproven commodity at that spot. It might have to come via a trade. It's going to have to come via, some team casting off because of a numbers crunch, a pass rusher, which very rarely happens. But, as all 32 teams look to shrink a roster from 90 to 53 in just a few hours' time, hopefully somebody makes a bad decision. You look at like Cleveland, who has a stacked pass rush room. Could a guy like Alex Wright, or could you look to, Tampa Bay, and they've got Joe Tryon, Shoyinka? Like, could those guys be options just because they're not going to get maybe the playing time that they deserve?
Don't have this in front of me, but I would venture to guess that in terms of investment, like you're saying, Johnny, the Cardinals probably have by far the least amount of money invested into their pass rush group in the entire NFL. Because who are they paying? They have Zaven Collins on a rookie contract still.
Yep.
He signed that extension, but this season he's not going to be
making
like
3.5.
Yeah, that much money. And then other than that, no one's making it like anything of consequence. So that doesn't
if we went team by team, Damon, and just you and Bo and I could name a pass rusher, interior or specifically on the edge, for every team, like as casuals for every other team in the NFL. I feel like, couldn't we do that?
Probably.
Like, I I would feel confident at least like three-fourths the NFL we could do that for.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean
That's
Damon.
Premium position. Teams focus on it. They emphasize it.
Okay, so with that being said, like, are we going to be in a position with this team to hand out excuses when the regular season starts? Because I listen to that, Damon, and I'm like, is this the defensive line 2.0 from last year? Because the D tackle group last year was not only the worst in the NFL, it was amongst the worst position units in the NFL. Like, it was like the Patriots QB room and the Cardinals defensive tackles.
Tell me, is they sit there, the legal tampering window opens up.
Yeah.
What position did you look that it's an absolute necessity that they upgrade?
What, this past spring?
Yeah.
You and I?
Yeah.
They needed a tackle.
Interior defensive line.
Right.
And the big fish in this class were commanding way too much money. You weren't going to go give $100 million to Christian Wilkins. So they went and they got two guys.
Yeah.
They got Justin Jones and they got Bilal Nichols. And I don't know if that hindered them from getting into serious negotiations with somebody else, but it seemed like that was their priority. And like that group got better, considerably better with Jones, Nichols, and now Darius Robinson. And I just don't think that the opportunity like really presented itself. And sometimes you have to be aggressive and seek it out yourself. I'm going to continue to say here on August 15th that it's just the time to get an edge rusher. Like there's one available right now. I think that people could, and I don't even know if the Jets are willing to even take calls right now.
I think it was a big mistake not getting a guy like an Andrew Van Ginkel, though. Like somebody that was on a reasonable contract that could have come in, been a decent starter for the team, and then wasn't a big risk moving forward in terms of a long-term contract.
Well, and again, Damon, I'm right there with you. Like, did you need to go out and sign the number one edge rusher this offseason? No, like none of us had that expectation. But like to not be in the mix for like a Justin Jones caliber edge rusher, and I mean, to be sitting here on August 15th and have this kind of outlook because of an injury to a player that, again, was injured last year. I can't emphasize that enough. Like, BJ Ojulari was hurt last year, missed time at the beginning of training camp, and was not ready in playing shape for the start of the regular season. It would be the equivalent, and I love Michael Wilson, of not taking a receiver in the draft. Because, what happens if Michael Wilson gets hurt? Well, I have Greg Dortch and maybe Zay Jones. You need more than that. You need to have a surplus, right? I think they took the opposite approach at pass rusher. But here's what I will say, and I will give them immense credit for this. And in long term, it's going to be the right decision. I think they looked at pick 27 as an opportunity to get an edge rusher. I think there was a run on them after there was a run on offensive players. And they did the best thing. They didn't force it, and they took the second best defensive tackle in the draft, and the guy looks like a star in the making in Darius Robinson. But you can't tell me, Bo and Damon, like after they got Nichols and Jones, and they have Roy Lopez, and they remember they re-signed LJ Collier. We know definitively on this podcast, the Cardinals tried to trade up for a defender in the teens. My guess is probably Dallas Turner, right? And then what happened? Latu goes. Chop Robinson is borderline overdrafted by the Miami Dolphins. That bone got picked pretty clean by pick 27. So, yeah, they added a bunch of defensive tackle because that's really just how the board felt for them.
It did feel like once Turner went off or Byron Murphy, whoever it was, right? And like there's no concrete insight on who they were eyeing there, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was Turner or Murphy. That once they kind of hit the 20s and like they weren't in on Chop, you saw it on that episode of Flight Plan. They were sweating out Darius Robinson falling to the big guy, as they call him, falling into their lap at 27.
Well, again, it's going to work out for them long term, and that was a long term play. But for this year, for a team that, again, like this is the point I will continue to bang home until people are blue in the ears, or blue in the face. Everybody talks about a rebuild until the season starts, and you have expectations. Rosters change every year. Nothing is guaranteed. Like Jonathan Gannon if they don't make the playoffs this year, and he's going to be on every stupid list about coaching hot seats and talking about it's a make or break season. Why not expedite your trajectory a little bit?
No, I don't disagree with it. Like if they show progress, that people can see the light.
I'm not saying I think that,
right?
But that kind of content. If they go 7-10 this year, they're going to be lists and articles.
That would be viewed as, I think, overwhelmingly as a positive step in the right direction for the Cardinals nationally.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, it's under their 7.5 is their over under now, and that would be under their over under projection this year. I just
killed by the hook, and that would be devastating, right? But I think nationally people would say, okay, I see this back-to-back 4-win seasons, and they go to 7. We can see the progress. And
I think if you
also there's a 7-10 season and there's a 7-10 season, right? And if you've got one where you've got very real progress, and it's you lost some tight games, that's I think that Gannon would be applauded for that performance.
I just feel like in an NFC where Derek Carr is winning 9 games, if you with Kyler Murray are winning 7 games, I don't think people are going to be talking about that as improvement, like sizable improvement. I think people are going to be talking about, like, are the Cardinals going to make a change at quarterback? Are they underachieving for the talent they have offensively? But I agree with you. Like, I think it's possible they win 7 games because of the inconsistencies of this pass rush and this defense. But it just remains to be seen. At some point, it's going to be a problem for them. And when is the last time you're at practice every day?
Yeah.
Well, every day. When is the last time that you stood back and said, wow, an edge rusher really smoked the tackle in training camp, pre or post Ojulari's injury?
I mean, I've seen some one-on-one reps from Thomas that look good, but yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I haven't seen it consistently. And
you got the Colts defenders doing it to the Cardinals at will today, where they're winning, they're smoking past Paris Johnson and Jonah Williams, one of the strengths of the Cardinals team. So that's just the point I'm trying to make. I mean,
I hear you.
I have major concerns about this unit, and hopefully that they can add to it before the regular season.
I think we'd all agree we'd be shocked if there's not a new member that in that room between now and there's different levels to it, right? But
yeah,
the status quo getting to Orchard Park in the season opener against Josh Allen and the Bills, I think everybody would be shocked if there's not some sort of tweak.
I don't want to harp on it too much because hindsight's 2020, but it is, in a way, when you think about it, with the lack of free agent additions at pass rush, it is a little bit egregious, the lack of draft type of capital that they used on that pass rush group as well. Like, you couldn't have used one of those 3rd-round picks on a pass rusher, because looking back on it, it really feels like that.
Who would you want? And I know that there's the 5th-round pick from Chicago. He was featured on Hard Knocks.
He was, and I know and people would think that that's where I was getting that from. But Johnny, you can attest to this. When we were watching the Saints preseason game, I mentioned him specifically to you as a guy that they probably should have picked instead of a Tip Ryman potentially, or a Brandon Dorless that the Falcons ended up drafting out of Oregon. I think there were some guys available that you could have picked, and I think they just needed more help there.
Yeah. I mean, Dorless is more like a Robinson, where he can play all the positions on the D line, more so than a stand-up off the edge guy, outside linebacker. But look, I hear you. I think outside the big 3 from this past draft, who we just watched a lot to the last 2 days and looks good. And, Dallas Turner, the reports out of Minnesota, he's looking really good. Haven't heard too much about the kid out of Florida State, Jared Verse, with his start for the Rams, but that was about it. Like who was worthy, or who did you have to kind of take that at that point to ensure yourself that caliber of player?
I mean, hindsight's 2020, and these poor rookies haven't played an NFL game yet. But the Cardinals, based on pure, Austin Ford even said it. It wasn't their intention to draft this many DBs, but they've used now 3 day 2 picks in 2 years on cornerbacks, right? Okay, so Elijah Jones was taken before Adisa Isaac, who's a pass rusher for the Ravens out of Penn State, played opposite Chop Robinson.
Yep.
Jonah Ellis, who was a fantastic pass rusher out of Utah, went pick 76, right around to the Denver Broncos. It's going to play for a lot for them, right around where Tip Ryman was taken. Braylon Trice picked 74. Now I know he just, I think, blew out his knees. So, but he was first team All Pac-12. Chris Braswell at the end of the second round. Marshawn Nealand at the end of the I mean, there's like 5 or 6 pass rushers that we would have mocked in the PFF mock draft simulator that went exactly where we assumed they would go. And the Cardinals said, we're going to triple down on defensive back play. And guess what? Like, their DB play is going to be much improved, right? I'm not complaining about Max Melton or Taylor Demerson, right? I think Trey Benson's got a bright future. But like, I will, to Damon's point, like, if the 2 kids from Illinois are not playing or underperforming, or more importantly, their value does not match where they were drafted. Like, Tick Bryman could be an ass kicker as a blocker. If he's playing 30% of the snaps, what the hell are we doing? And there were some supplemental edge rushers that were available. You're going to be able to say, like, that was a mistake. But who knows? Like, Xavier Thomas, this is the way the draft works, could be better than all of those guys, especially under JG. I don't think it's realistic to ask any day 2 or day 3 pick to come in and help this team exponentially this year. I think you would have had to go out and get a free agent or Dallas Turner, Latu, or a Chop Robinson, in my opinion. So again, like, we can nitpick the end of day 2, and that's a discussion long term, but they got $35 million that they didn't spend, and they're going to carry over. And they are projected to have, if everybody would check Spot Track and overthecap.com, top 3 to 5 money next offseason. With guys coming off their books. Like, you had the funds to go out and help yourself at pass rusher, would not have broken your cap situation at all. You chose not to do that. We're talking about Bilal Nichols. Like, what? Like, he's some marquee free agent signing? No, Justin Jones is making $10 million. Bilal Nichols isn't making big time money. I mean, come on now. What are we doing? So that to me is where the opportunity was missed. Last March, they didn't sign anybody. So we'll see if that's going to bite them in the ass or not.
Well, I think that the approach becomes what it was with the defensive line, the edge come next season. And I know that doesn't give anybody any comfort right now, but it's pay 1, draft 1, if not pay 2 and draft 1.
Oh, I think definitely that's definitely happening.
Yeah.
100%. But again, like, it's going to gut. Last offseason, we ate a big pile of shit at the defensive line group, but it didn't matter because everybody knew what we signed up for last year, right? It was easier to stomach. It's like, oh, well, you know what? We're trying to get Marv. We're trying to get Joe Alt. Just get Kyler back, get him some reps. What are the expectations? And I know it differs from fan to fan this year. Win games, show promise, winning record, playoffs maybe. In the NFC, where Sam Darnold's a starting quarterback. Like, they're just, with the expectations, you can't come in shooting blanks at a position like that. You just can't.
No, I mean, you can't, and it's unfortunate, but the opportunity, where was it this offseason outside of the big names? And I know we've gone through it. We've gone through the draft picks, who they could have had, and it just wasn't. And we like to, set it up. It's right there in line with where there wasn't a whole lot of movement with the quarterback position until this time last year with the horrific joint practice with the Vikings. It was tough, and they paid for it, right? There were some games that maybe were winnable if you got the signal caller in here early enough. They probably win at Washington. Who knows? Maybe they win it in against the Giants, but that still was the defense falling apart at the end. They couldn't get any stops. Regardless, like, I just don't know. Like, I just firmly believe right now, August 15th, the market isn't that for buyers, for people to go and try and upgrade at that position. And it's, as we sit and we see a lot of positives from this team in the improved roster, I think that's where it's really they're going to have to make up for it. Like the improved defensive line, the inside linebackers, right? The improved secondary that they invested 3 day 2 picks in over the last 2 drafts. And then, the old steady safeties that they have back there in Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. Like that's where they're going to have to pick up this defense and find creative ways to get stops outside of, hey, we've got this ass kicker edge rusher who's going to go and put the opposing quarterback on his ass. It's just, that's not how they're going to be able to play football for the entirety likely of the season.
I mean, Montez Sweat was traded for a second round pick last year.
Right.
The Cardinals are going to have an opportunity if a team falls out of it, and we hope that they're not out of it.
Those teams. Look at those teams like Washington, like the profile of Washington last year, where you had a coach that seat was tremendously hot.
Yep.
In a team that was on the verge of collapsing, and you look at their edge rush room, and then you can go window shopping there, and we'll absolutely do that. And I just think that teams are naive in their belief of where they can go in the 2024 season. Like I sent you guys on Instagram today, who was deemed the best off seasons according to NFL on Fox, who improved their roster, and they had the Tennessee Titans. It's just like really, like, there's really belief that the Titans can be competitive this year, and that they had a good offseason by throwing a bag at Calvin Ridley and adding these guys who sign up for their AARP card. Tony Pollard. They signed the safeties from Seattle who were cast off, and Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams. It's like, come on, like they didn't improve this year. Like they're just trying to keep their head above water and hope that kicking the tires on some of these guys works. But inevitably, teams like that are just going to fall apart. The wheels are going to absolutely just come right off, and they'll be sellers. And there will be the opportunity for Manias to truly take advantage and improve this group in the interim before next offseason.
It's going to be interesting to watch. We got 3.5 more weeks till the start of the regular season. What will this pass rush group look like? What will this Shady Rays room look like for the Venerable house as my collection continues to expand? I've got the all black, I've got the timber, and I'm looking to continue to upgrade. And if you haven't upgraded your shades with Shady Rays, what are you waiting for? We're going to hook you up. Sales right now using the bonus code PHNX. I can tell you right now, I have gone the quote unquote major brand designer glasses. Barf. I'll never do it again. These are designer quality at a more than reasonable price. I love to tell the story. I was vacationing with my lovely wife in Hawaii. I was taken down by a wave on the shorelines of Hawaii, Kanapali Beach. No one opted to help me. And in the process, I lost one of my favorite pairs of Shady Rays. But I picked myself up by my bootstrap. I went to my chair in the sand. I pulled out my smartphone. I went to shadyrays.com. I used the bonus code PHNX, and I got 35% off a new pair of shades that were waiting for me when I got home from vacay. And again, like I'm all about, like, these are durable, yet like if I need to switch them out like every 18, 24 months, I don't feel like I have to break the bank to do that. And the best part is, like, if you don't like the way they look on your face, send them back for free. And then they're going to give you a hookup. Lost, broken replacements. They've got protective eyewear. They've got flash deals. They're always churning out new stuff. And the stuff that gets clearanced out, they'll let you know $10, $15, $20 upon checkout. I mean, just like, I love the look of their sunglasses, and I love not paying a premium for them. It's the best possible combination. PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars, Bo, by more than 300,000 people. ShadyRays.com.
Shady Rays, love it. We were sporting them yesterday when the sun was shining here in Indy. Not today in the rain, but they're perfect for any adventure that you're going on. If you need to hire, if you're looking for someone for your business, the perfect, most qualified candidate, look no further than Indeed. You need Indeed. Indeed is matching you with the hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors. 350 million people visit Indeed per month, according to Indeed data. They're going to help you find the most qualified, best candidate for your business and do it fast. You know, you can ditch the busy work. You can get, through all the resumes, do all the scouting, the scheduling, the screening, and messaging. Indeed's going to do all that heavy lifting for you. The one thing I love about Indeed, guys, is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because, look, they're going to take the most qualified candidates and put them right in front of you, and they're going to get you in a spot to where you can bolster your staff, for your business. Our listeners right now, PHNX Cardinals, they get a $75 sponsored job credit to get the jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying that you heard about them from PHNX Cardinals. Johnny, Damon, Dawg, Bo, we sit you over here. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire? You need Indeed.
I need these super chats in my life. Let's start with the friend of the program, that guy, Angelo, $187.5. Thank you so much, Angelo. My fantasy draft is coming up. I have the 4th pick. Wow, already know his pick. Not being biased, who would you pick 4th overall? Love the show, and I'm taking Wilson in my 3rd or 4th round. Hashtag hold the line. So conventional snake draft, gentlemen. We've got our draft for PHNX coming up.
Are there any keepers? That's important.
There no keepers?
Okay.
I'm guessing so. We're just going to assume there are no keepers. But, I mean, McCaffrey, you would assume, is going to be the top pick.
Yeah.
If it's not PPR or non-PPR. I mean, like, I think there's a mix. McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and, like, who would be – Damon, who would be in that group?
So I think if one of CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill fall to you, that's probably got to be the guy. The 4th ranked player right now is Breece Hall. I absolutely despise that value. I think that's some of the worst value I've ever heard in my entire life. John Robinson is the 5th overall player.
Your former teammate.
I don't hate that.
Yep. Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad pick. And then, of course, you got Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson rounding out that group there. So I think
Chase is being slept on, as I keep hearing. And
he had a down year last year, and he was still pretty good.
But yeah, then there was no Joe Burrow.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think I would go with Tyreek Hill or CeeDee Lamb if one of them was available. And then after that, I think I'm looking at Bijan or Jamar Chase. And then also, I'm just going to say, Angelo, get yourself some Michael Wilson, but maybe wait until like the 7th, 8th round, because you're still going to probably be able to end up with him 3rd or 4th. I'm trying to look out for your team here.
I think if you have a top 6 pick in fantasy, you're in good shape. McCaffrey, Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson. I think after those 6, there's a monster drop off. Like you mentioned it. Breece Hall, not interested. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like
Amon-Ra better than Jefferson right now.
Okay.
Don't you guys? I mean, he's quarterback proof to an extent. But Sam, are you going to want to, first off, think about just your quality of life. Sitting down and having to watch Sam Darnold play quarterback when you're rooting for your fantasy team, it's taking a hit.
I've lived that life many times, and it's not a life I want to live. So thank you for the super chat, Angelo. We've got a fantasy draft coming up. More information to come here at PHNX Sports that may or may not be on full display for everybody to watch. How about Mike? Back-to-back $10 super chats.
Thank you, Mike.
We appreciate you, my guy. Just so, Bo, how did the D and O line look today? We covered that to a great extent. Any individual standouts on either side of the ball, Bo, for the Cardinals?
Yeah, we did talk about it, but we've got new members of the audience, over 1,100 of you watching. Please drop a like on this video, and big thanks to Mike Sabo with that super chat. I think that you wanted to see better results from Pass Pro for a 2nd straight day, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as the Colts. Beat writers, they were gassing up. Obviously, their guys coming off the defensive line. I think that there were still plays to be made by this offense, and Kyler Murray didn't seem like he was under complete duress the entire time. So it wasn't flawless. It wasn't nearly perfect. It needs to be better, but it's a group that has some continuity to it, but it still has to kind of work out the kinks to be where they were last year.
In the 2-minute drill today, though, it does bear noting that they were kind of the reason that the drive kind of stalled.
Yeah. So discipline, the false start.
There was 2 back-to-back penalties. I believe the holding was on Paris Johnson. I could be wrong, but the reason that I'm saying this is because Kyler rolled out to his left, and I believe, and that was kind of where the direction of the flag was thrown. So I think it was Paris Johnson, may have been Will Hernandez, but the Cardinals got a 1st down to keep the drive going, and it had to be brought back because of said holding penalty. And then the next play, there was a false start on somebody. Couldn't make out who it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, the O-line didn't do well in that drill.
Yeah. The regime was saying Sam Darnold favored to win comeback player of the year. It's another one of those ones is like comeback from what exactly?
From being bad.
From being bad.
Just light your money on fire. Good Lord. Mike Sabo, again, another $10. Any news on the edge rusher? I think, again, it's as the day turns, as the training camp turns, it changes. The options are dwindling. We have not heard, we mentioned Reddick earlier. Yannick Ngakoue, who did suffer an injury last year, I think an ankle injury with the Bears that ended his season. Like, is he healthy? Dude, why isn't he taking workouts? Yannick Ngakoue wants $10 million a year. I mean, like at this point, he probably won't get that, but like $7-8 million. Yannick Ngakoue for the Arizona Cardinals makes all the sense in the world just because of the relationship Eberflus has with Gannon. Like I guess he was a model teammate in Chicago. He's a good guy. He's been around the NFL. Gannon and Austin Ford, they've seen him enough on opposing teams. Like that to me is really strange because I think we'd all agree if we woke up tomorrow and this team added Yannick Ngakoue, it's not going to fix everything, but it's like, shit, you got 3 weeks to get ready for Buffalo. Yannick Ngakoue can help you if he's fully healthy. So that's the one, Mike, where you're scratching your head because something's not connecting here with the Yannick situation.
I mean, I don't think he was signed at this time last year.
Okay.
Ngakoue seems like one of those guys who perennially is like waiting to sign and maybe not wanting to put his body through training camp. But like Chicago, who's been tied to a couple of these trade candidate edge rushers and Judon and now Hassan Reddick, could they just be waiting to say, hey, like continue to get healthy and then we'll bring you in before the start of the season?
That to me, like if the Bears can just roll out of bed and sign Yannick Ngakoue, that's an indictment on Austin Ford. I will not be a fan of that.
Why? He's got a relationship there. He knows the system.
Well, but like the system is for the most part what the Cardinals run to some extent.
It's a name. It's like I said. It's like the Carl Lawson thing. It's a name. It's a guy that has been productive in this league, but like recently. What has he done? Like
he had a double-digit sack season two years ago. I mean, he's been much more productive than. There
are guys that come off being productive in a season and their production just goes off a cliff. Like that's the, this league, the NFL. It's sometimes you just roll out of bed the next day and you're not the player that you were yesterday. And I think it wouldn't inspire. Like for me, if they sign Yannick Ngakoue tonight. It doesn't inspire that much hope in me in this pass rush tomorrow.
Okay.
Does it for you?
I said double digit. He had 9.5 sacks for the Colts 2 years ago, and then 4 for the Chicago Bears. I mean, I feel better about this group. And respectfully, and I'm not saying this to be mean. Like, it's going to be hard for me to feel worse about this group than I do right now. When I have to watch my favorite football team start Dennis Gardeck in 2024, when I thought again that as a Keim guy, like some of these guys that were productive 3 or 4 years ago, like the Cardinals did such a great job and this isn't fair. Gardeck shouldn't be asked to be a starter, but it's like Marco Wilson's gone and Isaiah Simmons is gone. And it's just like, I don't want to see that on Sundays. I want this team to aspire to be better. And if the answer is, well, we just haven't had enough resources, I call bullshit on that. You've had 21 draft picks, including how many in the top 100, and you've got $35 million sitting in your pocket. I mean, like, for all the people that are talking about rebuilding the right way, I just, one pass rush signing is not going to break your, the foundation of what you're building. This team, I think, is ahead of schedule, and they've shown you that they're ahead of schedule. They look fantastic offensively, and they've got youth and athleticism in their back seven. Owen Papo looks like a star in the making. They've got corners and safeties for days. They're going to be fine at those units, and then we all agreed that they've upgraded on defensive tackle. There has been gross negligence at edge rusher, and it is It is irresponsible
I actually kind of agree with him.
to trot out your edge rushing group that you have week 1. Like that's irresponsible.
How many weeks did they end the season without a sack last season?
It was 6 straight games.
And then they
won over 7 games.
And it wasn't only that, Damon. It was how it looked. It looked like they were running in cement.
It was 7 on 7.
They couldn't get pressure on anybody.
But they didn't add basically at all to a group that could not manage to get a sack for the entire second half of the season last year.
The Cardinals training staff
it looked like Justin Fields versus high schoolers.
Training staff put out and prepped the field for practice and put trash cans in the defensive line that were better than some of the players that were lining up on the defensive line last year. The vastly improved defensive line is going to play a role and hopefully get them back to at least where they were before that slump, right? Where they were like top 12 in the league in sacks and they were getting some TFLs.
Top 12?
Yeah.
You think this team can be top 12 throughout the course of this
what's
season?
The difference is the status quo. I mean, you take out a 4-sack performance from BJ Ojulari, but you still have the guys that got most of those sacks, and you added guys that were more productive than some of those other that they let walk.
I think those numbers last year, and we keep bringing up the first half of the season, which that's fair to do. Do you remember the teams that they played in the first half of the season and the offensive lines that they trotted out? They started the first two games of the year against dismal offensive teams in Daniel Jones-led Giants and the Commanders led by Sam Howell, who was taking 10 sacks against everybody.
Right.
I think that skewed their numbers to some extent. You have to prepare this year for the gauntlet that is you've known your schedule for 6 months. You open up with Josh Allen. You open up with Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff. Who on the Cardinals is beating those tackles to generate pressure against 3 Pro Bowl quarterbacks, potentially 3 Super Bowl quarterbacks? Well, you don't have anybody that can do that.
If you get pressure up the middle too, that can make a difference. That can
100%.
That can quarterback off the spot. Now, Josh Allen, that's tough. That's what makes him so good. Matthew Stafford, if you generate pressure up the front, and like your interior defensive line, and that's what they tried to fortify this offseason by moving Avila to center, and then you've got 2 guards that you've paid a lot of money for.
Yeah.
That's going to be I think a good battle in week 2, and then Detroit's got one of the best offensive line in the entire game. Which is going to be, no matter who you have there, they're going to be able to slow you down with Penei Sewell and crew. And then Washington, then you can start to rack up some sacks. But you should. And then it gets tough again with San Francisco. Green Bay's fine. Like, they're okay. You should be able to get some sacks against Green Bay. The Chargers are young, but I just think that you've got to find a way to be productive, and you're going to have to find a way to do it without, household names at the edge rush position.
It's just all the same guys though. Like I don't think me or Johnny are sitting here, or people in the chat are saying they needed to go out and sign Danielle Hunter to the biggest contract that any edge rusher got. Mm-hmm. It's just that they decided basically to run it back with the same group that was already the worst edge rushing group in the league probably last season.
I don't want to come on this show every day and complain about the guys that they have, because it's not their fault. It is not Jesse Lucetta's fault that he played fullback last year and is somehow now a pass rusher again, and that Victor Dimukeje can't get home against anybody.
Can I stop this? Like, sometimes when you're trying to be nice and respectful, you come off like the most disrespectful possible.
It's like the kids at school who have behavior disorders, but really it's like they have bad parents. That's what this is. It's like, I'm not going to hold this kid accountable who's doing spitballs at his teacher when at home he's got a broken home. Whereas I'm not going to hold Jesse Luketta, Victor Dimukeje, and Dennis Gardeck and Cameron Thomas accountable for the fact that they shouldn't be contributors in anybody's pass rush group. And that's probably too harsh for Gardeck, because he's a rotational guy. He is not a starter. The Cardinals told you he wasn't a starter. He wasn't supposed to start for you. People are saying new regime. I'm just projecting at this point. Projecting what? I'll project this pass rush group as ass again because it was bad last year. There's a projection for you. Hey, can you project that Josh Allen has 10 seconds to throw because Cardinals can't get home off the edge? I can. I mean, like most NFL teams say, we don't need one edge rusher. We need two of them. We need two guys. Teams are like, oh, we got solidified on one side. Let's go draft a first-round edge rusher on the other side. And again, I'm fully acknowledging
I also think you need to acknowledge that some of the things that you view as solutions, they're
band-aids. They're 100%. These are band-aids.
Rearranging furniture. It's just a different name on the back of the jersey, and I think that you would probably get similar or worse production.
I do think pass rush is one of those unique spots where you can add some help before the season with guys that can come off the couch. And I mean, the Cardinals have done it before with John Abraham and Dwight Freeney. Like you can go out and get somebody to backdoor 7 or 8 sacks for you.
But here's the thing too, like the rest of the team that you invested in, that you've overhauled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to my point is that you focused on and you found paths to improve, right? They have to show that early on.
Yeah.
And then if it proves to be, man, we just can't get any pressure. We can't get any pressure. The chat's killing it. They've been killing it all week. You can't get it. Then you say, hey, we got to go fix this because where we invested, like it's paid off, but now we're holding this team back because of the pass rush.
I agree with you. Look, you and I don't think have any disagreement. I think we have
with your
I think we're the same. We're basically the same guy. This comment here, Chase, who I love, Johnny bringing Band-Aids to help with gun wounds. And I don't like guns, but that's pretty reasonable take of like the Cardinals. You know, I like this comment from
Johnny
311 clown face emoji. Brian has a reasonable take here. I mean, we don't expect any improvements in year 2 of a system for these guys. It's fair. And I think they're expecting that, Brian, with Zaven Collins, why he got an extension.
They have big expectations for BJ Ojulari. That's what sucks.
Maybe too big.
Yeah, it's a little bit rough to expect a huge jump like that in year 2 for BJ Ojulari, where he's got to be the top guy in the whole unit. If he's your second guy, that makes a lot more sense to me.
That's the irresponsible part, Damon, that we were talking about. Go look at BJ Ojulari, and I get it, rookie year. Go look at BJ Ojulari in the preseason game against the Vikings last year at the Vikings. We were watching it mortified because he didn't look healthy. I thought they were going to have to start him on injured reserve to start last year. It took him like half the season to get up and running. So then you're going to turn around and say, we're good. This guy can do it over 17 games. The hell he can't. And now you've burned yourself. Again, it's the same argument that I have with you're trusting a college player that was hurt to then come in and think that he's going to explode and carry your pass rush. You have to have more foresight than that.
I don't think they view anybody that can carry this pass rush. Right? It's going to have to be a group effort. It's going to have to be a collection of guys.
Well, yeah, by default it is. It's a collection of Jags. Just a guy. They got a bunch of those guys. Here's 3 sacks. Here's 2.5. Here's maybe 4. Budo add a couple. Darius, Justin Jones. That's great. And that'll help you over the course of a 17-game season. We all know that this team is going to be in a position to win multiple games this year, maybe double-digit games in final possessions. Can they get a stop? We haven't seen that yet because the Cardinals were not in a position last year outside of maybe the Philadelphia game, which they did get a stop and they held them to a field goal. How many times last year were they in 1-score games in the fourth quarter, Bo and Damon, where we're like, got to get them off the field, got to get a stop, we win this game. Or let's get the ball back to Kyler Murray. That didn't happen. They were losing a lot of games badly. So now it's like, oh yeah, we're in 1-possession games and we're putting ourselves in a position to win, but we can't get off the field. That's going to be disheartening for this fan base. We're just trying to mentally prepare for that.
Yeah.
That's tough.
But be realistic where you are as an organization. I mean, this is year 2 of a rebuild.
You and I said we agree on everything.
Yeah.
I disagree with you on something wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
When Kyler Murray, and you double down on him, looks like this and is making this much money, the expectation is you're a playoff team, not 7 wins with Kyler Murray making $50 million.
But if you have Kyler Murray and he's locked in, right, for the 4, like this is year 1 of his extension. He turned 27 last week, 2 weeks ago. And you're like, okay, if we show improvement and he leads this offense and we just weren't there defensively, then you work on that this offseason. And then the roster's looking pretty good. And then you got Kyler Murray the rest of the way, this contract where they could be they've got on paper going in each every year. And I know the NFL, and that's why we love it to an extent, like, because even when you have a great roster on paper, things happen. But on paper, you have a roster that can contend and consistently be in the mix for a playoff spot and then competing for bigger and better things, the rest of the way. This isn't like, hey, we need to contend for a Super Bowl right now.
No one's saying that. That's not what I'm saying.
Right. That's why it's kind of tough footing.
Yeah, they've hurt themselves, I think, with the direction they chose to took at that one position. Topic 64, 499. We will have a bunch of picks again like last year. If so, we might just have to give up some picks for a beast on the edge. We have seen Austin Ford hasn't been willing to give up picks yet for a player. That will be the first time, topic 64, that he's been willing to do that. The only time he's traded a pick for a player was out of complete desperation was the Dobbs trade last year. And that was literally that took Colt McCoy's arm not functioning in a joint practice against the Vikings. And that was an embarrassing performance by their offense where they flew back to Arizona, traded for Dobbs, and subsequently cut their QB1. So is that, I'm asking my peers that are in Indy right now, is the Cardinals pass rush embarrassing the team enough for Austin Ford to make a similar move?
What's the question again?
We didn't even listen to what I was saying.
I was reading some of that.
As we got 90 minutes in the last year at this time, it took a embarrassing performance by Colt McCoy with a dead arm, no fault of his own, for Austin Ford to turn around and say, we can't operate like this, to go and trade for his QB1.
I think there are similar conversations, but not ultimatum's not the right word.
It's not as dire.
It hasn't reached a point because they have guys that can do the things that they're at, that can do the variety of things that they ask their outside linebackers to do. I don't think it's JG and the coaching staff saying this can't work. Like this can't work on any level in the NFL. Like, I don't think that there's the coaching staff, the organization is that down on this pass rush, but there is, and we know this, that they're going to have to scheme pressure and sacks that absolutely they would welcome with open arms and upgrade at that position.
And to be fair, that was a trick question. Nothing as bad as Colt McCoy pointing and couldn't throw. Somebody had posted on Twitter today, God love him, some of the throws from Colt last year during joint practice against the Vikings.
Why did they do that?
Oh, it was great. You forgot how bad it was.
Did you post them?
No, did I? I remember seeing those and texting you, and I'm like, they must be really high on Caleb Williams. If this is what they're trotting out, they must really love Caleb Williams. That was my take on it. It was dead serious that they were going to do that and sacrifice an 0-17 season or what looked like it for Caleb Williams. And then they turned around, they're like, wait a minute, this cannot stand. Yeah, point throwing is among an all-time low for this franchise. It got the Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr. in an indirect way, but
that's right, Bees. Taking it back almost a year ago to this time, it does make you feel better where things are.
I'm fired up to watch this team. Sans the pass rush, I feel good about every level of this team. You can sell me hope for every position outside of edge rusher right now.
Michael's saying next year's draft is garbage. Here's how people usually
maybe a QB.
Yeah, here's how people usually judge a draft. Like, Are there quarterbacks in it? Are there playmakers in it? Like this past draft, obviously everybody loved because there's so many wide receivers in it. They had enough quarterbacks. There's 5 first-round quarterbacks this past year. People love that.
A million receivers.
So, like, as far as, the popcorn type of draft, yeah, it's not that because it switches back from an offensive draft to a defensive draft where it's littered with what the Cardinals now need in interior defensive linemen and edge rushers.
Which is kind of a masterclass by Monty when you think about it in a way. And I think that we're all like Johnny would agree that we're very comfortable with the direction Monty has this team.
100%.
It's just that we have to talk about the deficiencies of this team. And currently that is the spot where it's clear as day that that's the, number one problem that they have and that they didn't invest enough in the offseason.
Yeah,
it's become the number one problem, but it wasn't the previous number one problem. Areas that they addressed this offseason that they needed to were the number one problem.
It was 2 or 3. I would say anywhere behind the D
like
tackle
when we
group.
previewed free agency, we all had an edge up there, top priority. I think we all agreed it was the interior.
And they haven't added, they've subtracted from that.
But then also when you had Keitrell Clark, a 6th rounder, and you had Starling Thomas, an undrafted guy playing snaps as they did.
That was bad.
Brack. They went out and they got Sean Murphy Bunting, and then they invested in draft capital into that.
Listen, I got our guy New Regime in the chat saying, hopefully this is the last time we ever hear Johnny complain about an edge rusher. It's not going to be the last time. Buckle up, New Regime. You want me to put away the pom-poms and the face paint, not be a fanboy? We're going to talk about where this team potentially could struggle this year. That's what this podcast does. We celebrate this team and we're holding them accountable. We just did a 90-minute show, and my peers, it's got to be close to 10 p.m. Indy time, and we're here for this grind.
11. I have 30 minutes.
We will break down D-tier free agent pass rushers until fucking week 1, and you guys will like it, and it will be the best time this group has ever had. In the meantime, I need everybody to like this stream, by the way. We got 1,200 people watching right now. And again, if you're interested in what we're doing, hit that like button, subscribe, and shop the number 18 collection. Marv confirmed to reporters yesterday you can't buy his jersey yet, but I'm going to tell you right now, you can shop the number 18 collection.
He was asked for an update.
And he had no update.
And no.
It was sad. This isn't sad. Become a diehard. Go PHNX.com. Shop the number 18 collection, the Math Tee, the Maserati Marv Tee, the MHJ Tee, which is the best shirt, in my opinion, unbiased, we've ever done. And 20% off all future purchases when you become a diehard. Get any of these shirts for free. Become a diehard. Go PHNX.com. I love you, Regime. We're having fun.
Yeah, we're all having a blast. Nobody takes anything personal on this. Just sometimes it becomes a roast fest, and those are some of the fun shows. Let's since we've got new members of the audience, let's take a look at the highlights from today one last time before
let's do a great idea.
Yeah.
Any pass rush highlights? No.
If you missed it, it was a torrential downpour out there. I mean, we were soaked out there. Here's Kyler finding James Conner. This is going to be a Paris Johnson rep going against. Is this Kwity Paye? Did we decide that number 94?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
You've got yourself. This is Marvin here going to work a little bit against 39. Here's Greg Dortch takes over these highlights. By the way,
he just sends people to the ground.
Yeah,
he did it twice today.
To their grave.
You know, like those people edit those videos and guys are just like, they edit the person into outer space. Greg Dortch shakes defenders and they just fly out.
Those videos on Instagram, and they're going to like Saturn. Those are the defenders for Dortch. Is there a possibility, this is a serious question now, that Dortch has a better year statistically than everybody but like a Marv? Is there a possibility Dortch ends up with like 1,100 yards on this team?
I mean, he's never received the playing time necessary to like put up numbers.
I'd say there is a possibility because Michael Wilson has had injury problems in his career, right?
Very fair.
Like he told us at the draft, right? Like that was his number one priority, was playing all 17. Like if that doesn't happen, Greg Dortch is de facto number 2.
When he plays like over 75% of the offensive snaps, like he's just been productive. And that's interesting to see, like when kind of the rubber meets the road there, like who's going to budge? Is his production going to finally, go down a little bit? Like, I don't think it's going to go down. Like, I'm talking like per like snaps played in what he produces. But there is so many mouths to feed on this offense. But I think he's so undeniable with how open he does get. Like, the next level analytics prove that, like, how good he is as far as getting open. I just, when you look at it, like, I think Marv's going to put up really good numbers as a rookie. I think Michael Wilson, if he stays healthy, is going to put up really good numbers. And then Trey McBride, and then that they run the football. I just think that would be, I wouldn't be shocked by it, but for him to outproduce Wilson or MHJ would be pretty crazy to me.
So he's under contract. They have his restricted rights again next year.
Yeah.
What would it take for him? Like, if we're sitting here next spring and I'm complaining about a pass rush still, and Dortch is signing a multi-year extension with this team, like, would that be one of the most surprising things? If Greg Dortch has 1,000-yard season and they're like, well, we got Michael under contract, Marv's making no money as a rookie. Like, could you envision that? Because there are people watching these highlights of what you posted and Damon have posted the last 2 days, and there are people like tongue in cheek. Is that Tyreek Hill out there? And then you think about it, and it's like, when was the last time that Greg Dortch has let this team down? When is he Rondale Moore to pass or fumbled the football or, missed a game? I mean, you mentioned it. Everything is asked of him. He does it tenfold. I'm down counting this guy out. If I ever did, it feels weird watching preseason football without him. I'm at the point now where I'm like, is he their number 2 receiver, number 2 receiver with Michael Wilson at the end of this year? Is he pushing for 1,000 yards? Because he's flipping undeniable. Like, he's embarrassing defensive backs. And again, Michael looks like he's poised for 1,000 yards. So I don't want to, this isn't a knock on Michael Wilson. The Cardinals just have quickly become a receiver-rich team. You don't think that a team like the Buffalo Bills or the Dallas Cowboys would kill for Zay Jones right now? Of course they would. The Cardinals have a surplus of receivers suddenly.
His ability to get open, and I think as far as this receiving core, the playmakers, he's got the best yak ability too. To where, even if he just gets 3 to 4 targets a game and he secures those,
yeah,
he could match, I think, just the yardage as the other guys. It is going to be really fascinating to see how that plays out come the regular season.
Illadre 199. Dortch is going to be a 1,000-yard wide receiver. Just watch. Well, again, there's just one football to go around. This offense, I have no concerns over. Pass rush, running game, weapons, quarterback, health permitting.
I think pass pro right now, you can.
They'll be all right.
I think they'll be all right for sure, but just based off performance the last 2 days, I think that's something to kind of keep tabs on.
I think this is where their O-line goes during the year because they're so well coached and they have the bodies, and
for sure.
I have trust in that group. Again, if they had gone out and signed the Jonah Williams of edge rushers, I would feel differently. But everybody liked this video. We're approaching 200 likes. We need to get to 500 by mañana, and everybody wish safe travels.
Yeah, I don't think we're allowed to board the plane if we don't hit 500 likes. I've heard that.
Oh wow,
Southwest has a weird thing.
We got to start packing, Bo, like right now.
I think I speak for everybody. Thank you to Bo and Damon for the content.
4 hotel rooms that we're sandwiched in between. They're like, why are these people yelling about Arizona Cardinals football in some suburb of Indianapolis right now?
Thank God.
Tell those people to subscribe right now.
They're probably the Bowling Green baseball team that's on both sides of us. So I think they're probably up. We're probably doing fine.
Like this video, subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. Safe travels, gentlemen. We will talk to you mañana. Normal show time tomorrow, pending any breaking news. 4:30 p.m. Cardinals, is it a travel day? No. Are they off tomorrow? Is it a walkthrough? Obviously, They have the game on Saturday.
They're going to kind of turn it into their regular season Saturday, and then game on this upcoming Saturday. They play at 7 local here at Indy. 4, of course, in AZ. We'll have all the coverage there. Will be a halftime post-game show. Can't wait for it. So, but in between then, we've got the final show of the week, the work week on Friday at 4:30. So it's going to be fun.
Appreciate you, fellas. Appreciate everybody. Again, drop a like, subscribe to this podcast, PHNX Cardinals, wherever you get your podcasts. Huge audiences the last 2 days. Let's keep it going for a Football Friday, our preseason preview show.
Was it Michael that we missed out there? Michael, I was going to tell you, the side I think you were on the field, we don't have access to during practice. We're relegated to one side of the sidelines during that. I did meet Luke today, who made the trip. He went to, I believe, he was at some concert in Chicago and then came out to see us out at the joint practice. It was nice meeting him, and appreciate that, saying hi.
Well, we appreciate all of you. Again, back on a Football Friday. In the meantime, drop us a like, please. Pretty please. For Damon, Dawg, producer extraordinaire, he's Brack. I'm Johnny Venerable. We'll see you mañana. Take care, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.